Hello and welcome to Doodle Club with me, Cate Field. I'm an artist, writer, teacher, passionate about helping people find their creative spirit and then develop it a little bit further. Huge welcome to everyone who is new and welcome back to you lovely, lovely people who keep coming back week after week and leaving the most amazing comments. Thank you so much. In today's Doodle Club, we're going to be looking at patterns and how we can just use a really, really simple pattern and combine it with another pattern to create something really quite wonderful. So, are you ready? Let's go. Well, I do hope you are well. What we're going to do is use some template shapes that I've just cut out of some card. You could use paper, cardboard, whatever you want. And you don't have to do this. I'm just showing you a technique and you do your own thing. And I'm going to have the idea of a pattern like this wave and this curve, which I've just cut out, and then something a little bit more organic, like a flower. So again, I've cut that out. I've got the positive and the negative space, and then I've got this one as well, which is falling apart because I have used it a little bit, where I just cut out the shape. And I'm going to be working in my sketchbook just to play around with some ideas like I often do, and I'm going to use pencil and a little bit of watercolour just to play around with these initial ideas. And when we're putting together ideas, and now I've lost my pencil. Right, where did that go? Oh, here we are. Here we are. Monty, my cat, did just sort of walk over my whole desk, and you can imagine what happened there. So I've got double page in my sketchbook, and I'm going to take one of my templates just to create this curve. Now, obviously, you could do this freehand, but what I want to do is to create a repeated pattern of this shape across the page. I'm just sort of giving this wave, just putting this wave in. I'm going to do different things with it. I'm actually going to keep that straight edge as well. So we've got that kind of funny little shape. I'm going to put another one here. That one. If you can hear some background noise, it's my husband cutting up wood. So I do apologise for that if you can hear that in the background. Let's just do that there. Thank you all for your lovely comments over the last few weeks, especially the weather updates. I'm getting really quite good at geographic weather patterns, which is lovely. And from last week's, when I was doing the watercolour flowers, just so nice, your comments on the flowers near to where you live. What a lovely channel this is for all you lovely people sharing wonderful comments. There we go. So this is the same one, just repeated all over the page. I'm going to do another couple on this one as well, and then I'm going to take my kind of flower and I'm going to pop that in as well. But I'm going to put some colour on this first of all, the positive and the negative space. I'm going to use some watercolour, leave that to dry. While that's drying, I will work on this page. You could use colouring pencils, you could use acrylic pens, all sorts of things, whatever works for you. I'm going to use my Kuratake watercolour paints. I really like them. I use a whole variety of watercolours. I like these. They're in separate little pans so that I can replace them individually, which I have done over the years. The link is in the description if you want to check them out. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about my kind of colours that I want to do, and I'm just going to go for quite pastel shades, I think, today. Again, just putting the colour on quite quickly. Quite a bit of water. This sketchbook, the paper is 250 grams, so it will take a bit of water without going a bit weird. So that's okay. We can go on to the opposite page as well. I like working on a double page when I'm trying out ideas. Not always, but often I will. Let's just put that over that way, because the other page will be slightly different. Doesn't matter if it's blotchy at this point. I'm just putting down an idea. This is just an idea. And how we use a sketchbook, or how I use a sketchbook, and how I encourage my students to use a sketchbook, is for ideas and developing ideas. Your sketchbook, for me, isn't something that is absolutely perfect. That's not the point of a sketchbook. And for my students who are studying art and design, I want to see their mistakes. I want to see the things that have gone wrong. That sort of thing is really, really important. We need to be able to show our mistakes, and we need to be able to show how we resolve those mistakes. Right, I'm going to add a bit of blue. Just got a plastic lid here for my palette. Again, this sort of pearl. Doesn't matter about going over the lines at this point. That is not the point here. It's not important. You could use whatever colours you like, colours that make you happy. Perhaps colours that have some significance. It's a bit too much. If it's too dark, you add water. There we go. Again, working really quickly. I can't stress this enough, actually. It's important sort of to practice working quickly. We can then take our time later, when you're refining. Oh, that's a nice green, isn't it? We can definitely refine it later. And now I'm going to work on the negative space, and this time I am going to use yellow. Now, normally I would recommend that if you're going to use yellow, you do it first, and I should have probably done that, but it's fine. I was thinking of doing a darker colour, and that's kind of the reason why. But again, I'm just going over this. It will look really messy, and anyone who's created any art at all will know that you go through a messy stage. And sadly, that is when many people give up, because it just looks awful and they think, oh gosh, no, I can't be doing with this anymore. When actually, they just need to work through it. You need to work through the mess, which I have done in many previous tutorials, as my regular watchers will know. When I was doing a workshop a while ago, I was doing a demonstration, and I had quite a few people there. Quite often my workshops are really small and quite intimate, so we kind of have a chat as we go. But this was quite big, so it was more like me on the stage and an audience, as it were. And I could hear a little bit of muttering So one lady's saying, "Oh gosh, that looks terrible," and I could kind of hear it out of my ear, which was quite funny, and it did make me laugh because I thought, "Oh, just you wait, lady, just you wait and see." And to give her due, she was one of the first people to go, "Oh wow," at the end. So that was nice. So I'm going to leave that one to dry, that page, those kind of lovely pastel-y colours. And I'm going to move over to this side. Let's just move that like that. Now, on this page, I did all of these going the same way. On this page, I'm going to do a deviation. I'm going to use the same pattern template. Just sort of do this, drawing, just using pencil. And I'm just going to move things around a little bit, as I'm just kind of putting together the composition. Now this one, let's make sure that that's moved up. There, just put that one in there, and now I'm just going to put this underneath, so I have this kind of double wave here. Quite like that idea. And then I'm going to use my other one as well. Again, just putting these in. But like I said, you could use whatever you like. I've done this with young children, where we've used crayons and chalks, and that's been great fun. You could use bold colours, black and white, all sorts of things. Trying out different ideas. Really encourage people to do this. And then if you are sort of just trying out an idea of something that you might then use later, I would encourage you to write notes over what you've done to remind you, because if you're anything like me, you come back to it in a few weeks' time and you can't remember what you did, and you can't remember what your thoughts were. Yeah. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Tell me I am not the only one who does that. Right, I am now going to use my flower template here. I'm going to place that on the top. I like making my own stencils. I use bought ones, shop bought ones as well. But I do like making my own, because it's like when we do our own elements in art journaling or illustration, they're totally unique, aren't they? And for those of you who like to make cards, you're using your own designs, using your own elements, means that your card is going to be completely unique. And so I do make my own elements and stencils that I use over and over again until they fall apart. There we go. Oh, and again, it doesn't matter if things go wrong, and it's because we're just putting together an idea. I use this sort of technique when I'm teaching composition, because how we put something onto a page and make it look good takes practice, and it's one of those things that the more you do, the better you get. I'm just going to pop that one in there. So I'm just going to make up my mind whether some of these flowers are just going to be like on the top or whether they're going to be underneath. Haven't quite made up my mind yet. This page is still drying, so I'm going to put some more. I'm going to put some colour on this. I'm going to start off with some of my negative space. I'm going to keep to the same colours for this whole double page because I think that will work well. And I'm just going to start off with this mossy green. I'm just using a slightly smaller brush. Again, it doesn't matter if it's patchy at this point. And if you're not confident using watercolours, this is a really good way to practice, because it's not going to be perfect, and that's fine. I think this idea of perfectionism can be really quite destructive, and I certainly find this when I'm teaching young people, and often with older people as well. So much so that when I was teaching A-level and diploma, I would deliberately get my students to make mistakes. I'd say, this is the mistake lesson, we're just going to have some fun and make as many mistakes as we can. And it was great fun and quite liberating. But very difficult for a lot of people when they want, you know, the first thing they do to be beautiful. So anyway, I'm going to do some more colours on this, and then I'm going to show you what I do to play around with another idea before we go on to the next bit. So I've started to do some colour on this page, still leaving that one to dry, keeping to the same colours, and just sort of going over this sort of flower motif. So how I'm applying the watercolour is quite wet, the page is dry, and then I'm just letting the paint flow out, so add a little bit of water to it. Again, it doesn't matter if it goes over the edges at this point, just sort of putting that. And I'm liking this flower motif on top of the waves. I think that's working quite well. So let's again think about what else we could do. I really like mixing up media. So one of the things that I do frequently is I will start off with watercolour, and then I'll move on to something like acrylic pens, for example, or a black fineliner pen. I think those sorts of things can work really, really well. Now this one I'm just going to bring in here, and I would encourage you to do the same. In a previous tutorial quite recently, I did watercolour and then colouring pencils over the top. That can also work really well. And of course collage. I really do like working with collage. I will show you a piece that I'm working on at the moment, actually, a little bit later. There we go. So just putting in this green. Now you could do a whole variety of a kaleidoscope of colour, and that can look great as well. But I'm just going to stick to this sort of green, yellow and blue for this. I might put other colours on the top, or I might do that. I'm still thinking about that. Still thinking about what I might do. But of course, this is your sketchbook, and you can just play with it. You can have an idea and think, oh, what would happen if? And that phrase, what would happen if, is one of the best phrases you can have as an artist. And I love it when my students say that phrase, because my answer is nearly always, I don't know, try it and see. And then the fear bit comes in. But what if it all goes wrong? Well, what if it all goes wrong? You've learnt something, haven't you? If it all goes wrong, you'll know not to do that again. But the thing is, if you don't try it, then you will never know, will you? There we go. Let's pop that there. And again, I am liking this colour combination very much. I'm now going to do my flower over this way. Just sort of turn that round like that. And I think I'm going to use some, I think I will go back to my colouring pencils actually, because I've got some yellow. Let's just try this with yellow colouring pencil. These nothing fancy, these ones. Just, oh, there we go. Thank you so much for those of you who have commented on the new course, Walking the Quiet Path. I have just started to release that to everybody. So it was just for my members, and the members will get it early. That's kind of how I work with the YouTube membership. But you can now get parts 1 and 2 as I'm recording this in mid-April. So just sort of putting that. This is going to be very, very subtle. I hadn't planned to use colouring pencil, but now I'm thinking that that might be quite good. Again, just this kind of, do I want it to be subtle or do I want it to be bold? Again, it's not that it's right or wrong. It's just whatever you want, whatever effect that you want. And I'm still not sure about that because again, it's something that I'm just going to play with a little bit. The other thing that I do like to do when I'm doing a composition pattern is to put in one colour that doesn't really go with all of these. And I'm still thinking that I might do that with this, which I will show you at the end. But while I'm playing with this, I'm going to do a few more of these, almost like silhouettes. And then we will come back and see what happens. I started to play around with some of the colouring pencils. I'm not sure that this works terribly well. I might do a little bit more on it. Maybe this kind of pinky red is not the right colour. But as I keep saying, we're just trying out some ideas. I quite like the colours coming through. I'm just kind of scribbling an idea. I just want to see what the effect is like. I'm not sure about that. I quite like this kind of pale yellow here. But what I want to do is to have a little bit more intense colour on these. So I'm just going to pick up my paints again. And this time just go over what I've done. And just intensify it a little bit. It was a little bit too wishy-washy, and I did like the colour and these different shades of green. Let's just let that kind of fade through like that. Still thinking this needs something. And then I was wondering about putting a bit of mark making on here. I'm thinking now that this double page is just going to be full of experiments, and that's fine. I've just got a fineliner pen here. It's going to just sort of put some wiggly marks. Let's just make sure that you can see that bit there. Oh, it's kind of doing its own thing, this, but that's, so I'm just taking that wiggly line, that wavy line, and I'm just going to put some wiggles. This just with a black fineliner pen. You could use an acrylic pen, ballpoint pen. I could use an ink pen. Just popping that there. And as I've done that there, I need to repeat this idea somewhere else. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same wiggly line around this colour, this flower, sorry. Just put that there. When we're making marks on the page, it can have really, really interesting effects. So this is a very fine pen. I'm going to try a thicker one in a moment and see the effects that you get on that. Sort of wiggling it around the whole flower. Oh, beginning to run out of ink. Quite liking that. But let's have a think about using like an acrylic pen, which is a bit thicker, and see what that would look like. Let's go around this one at the top here. And whether that effect would be good. It's obviously much bolder and stronger. And we could repeat that with this one. Oh, I got a little bit wet in there, but that's okay. And if you're interested in things like surface design, this kind of idea of playing around with ideas is so good, because you will come up with some amazing, amazing ideas. I do like using acrylic pens. I use them a lot in my work. I'm going to put some more colour on here with paint, with the watercolour paint. And then I'm going to perhaps mimic some of the lines with contours with an acrylic pen. But I don't think I'm going to use black. I think I'm going to use a different colour. So I've been putting some more thoughts and some more ideas down. I've got my purple acrylic pen. I thought I would do some mark making down there with some lines. I've gone round this one. Let's just put in some mark making here. I'm not sure about this yet. I mean, I like some of it, and that is the whole point. Is you're going to try out different things. I'm going to have a little more of a play with this. Perhaps put some more shapes on it. I might do something like that. But while I'm thinking about that, I'm going to turn over the page. Let me just dab that. It's not quite dry, but that's okay. Like I said, I've just put some ideas for surface design on this one. I'm going to turn over my page, and we're going to try another idea. Again, using one of my templates that is falling apart a little bit now. And this is going to be more stylized, and I'm going to show you another way of putting together a design. Again, I'm going to use this. I'm going to do a repeated pattern across the page, and I'm going to divide up the page into maybe quarters, something like that, and we'll see what happens when we do that. So what I've done is I've taken this template and my flower one that I used previously, and I've put some of the designs on the double page again. I'm now going to take my ruler and I'm going to divide the page up. I was thinking about quarters, and now I'm just going to put some lines in, actually, just some vertical lines. And I'm going to show you how we can use this idea of this kind of stripe. I'm not measuring this, these are quite random, because I'm just playing with an idea. But I do like this sort of idea of messing things up a little bit and seeing what happens. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to take my acrylic pen, and I'm going to go around the shapes of silhouette so we can see them, and then I'm going to do a bit of positive and negative designs, and just seeing what happens. Again, really encourage you to take an idea and have that kind of what if I did that, what would happen, and just try some things out. Let's see, I'm just going around the outline of the shape. Now, you don't have to use a silhouette or a stencil. You could do things freehand to create your repeated pattern. You could use tracing paper to copy a design that you've done already. Quite like using tracing paper. It's really good. So as you can see, this is going to be much more stylized than the previous one, but using the same shapes. I've decided to use sort of green and purple, opposite sides of the colour wheel, complementary colours. I've just used acrylic markers. You could use felt tip pens, something like that. I just wanted to get an idea of the colour. I'm not sure about the background. I'm not sure whether to leave it white. That's quite good. And if you're not sure, then what you could do is just try a little bit. And again, this is where colouring pencils are quite fun. I'm just going to see what this bit would look like if, let me just make sure that is in camera shot like that. What would it look like if it had blue in the background? You just sort of try that bit there. Just quite liking that. And then what if it was kind of more of a yellow? And you can just try things out just on little bits of your design, just to have a look, and for you to sort of make up your mind what you want to do. I've also got some various shades of green. Let's have a kind of a dark moss green. I guess again, doing it very kind of scribbly. I just want to try out the idea of different colours, and this is the thing. In your sketchbook, you're playing around with ideas, you're trying out things, and then you can further develop them. And I have created a few tutorials where I do develop pieces, and I may well develop some of these. I am quite liking this, but let's go back to this one. I'm not sure that the purple and pink work. I'm not very keen on that. I like the wishy-washy watercolours, and so it might be that I just keep part of it. And one of the things that I do like to do is I'll use a frame. So I'll get a frame, and then I'll just take parts and have a look at it, and then I can perhaps think about something else that I might do, because you can get some very interesting patterns when you just use a frame. Some of which you think, no, that just looks rubbish. But others you think, yeah, that could work. So I'm just going to leave that pink. I think maybe it needs a little bit of pink. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think in the comments. I think I might have to try some pink. I just love working in a sketchbook, following my ideas. I've started to do some collage, which I'm going to be doing in the next tutorial. So you might want to catch up with me on that one. And I will leave that like that for this week. Well, I hope you enjoyed that and that you've got lots of ideas and things that you can do in the coming week. And if you'd like to see some more, you could look at this one and this one. And I'll see you next time. Oh, if you haven't liked and subscribed, you need to do that as well. Bye bye.